Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of the Gallifrey Time War box set volume 3. Which apologies in advance because, it released back in end of February and it's beginning of March. Beginning of April even. It's been a while. It's just I actually kind of feel like quite proud of myself that I get these reviews up fairly quickly-esque on the YouTube channel. Just haven't with this one, but obviously with the current situation that's going on, I have a lot more time on my hands. So on the cover of the box set, you've got Leela, you've got Romana, Narvin, and you've got Leela, Romana, Narvin, and a Dalek, and you've got a planet behind the Dalek. You've got some roundels behind Narvin and a TARDIS as well, which is just sort of more like a cylindery TARDIS. Cylindery type TARDIS there. You've got, as I say, a Dalek there and a planet behind, and this sort of deserty sort of thing there, as well as some planets down there. Some roundels in the background, as well as this sort of time sort of energy, almost as though the TARDIS is coming out of the vortex. Really love the cover, really nice cover. You've got Doctor Who, or from the world of Doctor Who, BBC Doctor Who, the names of the actors, and Nicholas Briggs, who does the Dalek voices, Gallifrey, Time War, Volume 3, and then on the back you've got the Seal of Rassilon, you've got the name of the episodes and the writers, you've got a bio about the box set. On the spine you've got the Seal of Rassilon, Gallifrey Time War 3, and Big Finish We Love Stories. On the inside you've got the nice sort of jewel case sort of thing going on, same cover, same stuff on the spine pretty much, likewise on the back. And then you've got all the discs, including the special features disc as well as promotional stuff to sort of sell you on the other box sets set in the Time War sort of range, as well as the production credits and the cast and some nice pictures too. Moving on to the episodes themselves, I'll start off with Hostiles, the first episode in the box set, which is very much feels like a proper classic, Base Under Siege sort of episode, like say the Ark in Space or Under the Lake Before the Flood. I like this box set because it has a smaller scale of characters. It feels more sort of stripped back from the first two box sets. It has its own identity basically from the other two box sets. It feels a lot more sort of smaller scale in terms of the cast, but in some ways that benefits it because it means that we've kind of, as I say, we've sort of started off with a fairly big cast in the first box set and then, for lack of a better term, whittled them down and sort of taking the chess pieces, some of the chess pieces off the board almost, and it really shows the futility and futility and stress and sort of damaging, lasting effect of the war, and that I think. And Hostiles starts off really well with like a nice action scene. It's pretty sort of fast-paced beginning and then the rest is sort of still fairly fast-paced. It's not super fast-paced, but it's sort of not a proper slow sort of burner, as it were. And that it feels like a new series episode, but with characters from the classic series. Romana is of course a Fourth Doctor companion. She and Narvin have a lot of nice banter and dialogue and sort of interactions and that, and it shows that they've been on quite a lot of adventures and known each other for a while as well. And we really get to dive deep into those two characters, and that it also feels kind of like a bit of a fairy tale-esque sort of story between the baddie, the Catal. The the Catal is like Gallifreyan for star, I think, or stardust. Either stardust or star. But either way, I love stuff like that. It just adds like a little added sort of texture or layer to this fictional world and the mythology of the Gallifreyans and the Time Lords and that. And I always love, as a fan, I always love eating up that sort of stuff, that little nugget of information. It's just nice. um, hostiles. There's some darker stuff as well. Some stuff with time and that, and this time grenade, and the monster, the baddie is really interesting, really well voiced by the guy who voices him. And 10 out of 10, can I just say, for the Foley artists, bringing the whole box set together, adding another level of sort of realism to the series or to the box set, with all the different sounds and background noises and noises of footsteps or birds in the background, or the wind whistling past trees, or vehicles moving, or spaceships rustling, or metal sounding, stepping on metal sort of grates or whatever. It just adds another level of depth and realism to the stories, other than the phenomenal acting of the cast that Big Finish always seem to get. So, but what else about Hostiles? Again, it just seems like such a good Base Under Siege story, like Under the Lake Before the Flood. I can't really remember how it wraps up, but also they're on a mission to get the TARDIS a dematerialization circuit. I do like the fact that it feels like the TARDIS isn't, a proper glamorous TARDIS. It has been through the war and got battered and bruised and that, and even the TARDIS they have is sort of, on its last legs. There's a lot of other TARDISes here on like different docks that they're planning on getting some resources from, which again just sort of adds to that idea that they are running out of resources and that the Time War is catching up onto them, or the futility of the Time War is sort of catching up to these characters and having a lasting effect on them as individuals, and that, as it would do, because, for lack of a better term, war is hell, and this Time War is just happening, across the universe, across time. It's mad. And so overall I gave Hostiles a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It felt like a really fun sort of Base Under Siege classic Doctor Who episode, but with the pacing of maybe a new series episode, with characters I really liked, that, as I say, were trying to find their friend Leela and that. Moving on to Never Know, which is sort of a Gallifreyan test that the intervention agency, the CIA, did, which was like a test to choose to pass that sort of spy training, I guess. And it's quite it's a grey area as to whether or not Romana as a character did that or passed it or whatever, but either way she is still part of the Celestial Intervention Agency, I think. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. There's also sort of time sensitive creatures that lock on to Leela because she's been in the vortex so long with the Doctor and on just audio as well. And so they're invisible and they sort of sense her. They kind of remind me of the Reapers from Father's Day, from that episode and that, so I quite like that, whether or not they're there to actually malevolently kill anyone, I don't know, but more so just sort of fix time or try and fix a paradox maybe, and that. I can't really remember much else from Never Know, which might just be telling you already my lowish score, which was a 7 out of 10. I just think it sort of dipped quite a bit for the series, or it was quite a dip from such a strong first start that the second episode was a bit of a misstep for me, unfortunately. But moving into episode 3, Mother Tongue, that was sort of the first episode in this box set to focus on Leela, and it's very much just a Leela-centric story. Narvin and Romana aren't even in that story. She, is sort of split across this sort of timeline of these people on Nutreus, I think it was called, which I was just trying to remind myself by saying Nutella, Nutreus, I don't know why. And that it felt like Doctor Who meets sort of Lord of the Rings, or like a Stephen Moffat episode. The paradoxical nature of a Stephen Moffat episode meets Lord of the Rings, but if it was focused on just Louise Jameson as Leela. And if that sounds like your cup of tea or your jam, then it's more power to you, and I think it would really be your sort of favourite sort of story. I think it's one where I personally would need to re-listen to it again, because, as I say, it is a bit jarring, quite experimental, and that, I could say that about the whole box set. It feels very sort of experimental, has some quite interesting visuals, and very interesting ideas with what the Time Lords want to do with this planet and that. And it's quite sad again with what the locals want and then what the Time Lords want, and then also the situation that it puts Leela in as a mother, and how she's wanting the best for her son, but everything kind of goes a bit sideways, and it's like sort of turn left, but with Leela instead of Donna, but again in the Time War. So yeah. Very interesting story, and I gave that one an 8 out of 10. Lastly, Unity, the planet Unity, the sort of Western sort of story in my head. Very interesting. The first episode with the Daleks in the box set, which honestly didn't bother me as much as, say, box set 2. I distinctly remember saying in box set 2 that I found that very annoying. I think that my shouty boys, my pepper pot boys weren't in the box set very much, but here the first episode and episode 3 were strong enough that I wasn't too bothered by the fact that the Daleks weren't in it, because when they are in it, it just feels more earned, and it's the first episode that obviously Leela, Romana and Narvin are all together. I really like the mother and the son character in this story, and that they were quite interesting. I loved the ending. Wow, what an ending. Like, what a sort of cliffhanger ending. Like, wow, I don't want to ruin it, but wow. Okay. And I wasn't expecting it, and also the bit leading up to it, like the chameleon arches sort of dropped and mentioned, and Romana's going to change her whole person, and forget who she is, and use the chameleon arch. I love the drop of that. I also quite like in Never Nor, I think it is, the fact that the TARDIS blends in to a rock, or changes into a rock. It's just such a feature of the TARDIS within the show. The Doctor's TARDIS obviously never really ever changes from episode to episode, depending on where he is, so it's nice, or where she is. It's nice where here that finally does happen. But I also like the fact that the TARDIS throughout these adventures, or their TARDIS, isn't like, depicted as though it's tip-top shape, it's battered, it's bruised, it's gone through the ringer, just like the characters have. So it's an extension of them, really. And the fact that, they're running out of time and resources, I love the sort of confrontation and sort of confrontation between Romana and Leela, and the fact that Leela just isn't ready to just leave, and that when people need her, and she's really kind of annoyed by the Gallifreyans and Time Lords and that, but Romana does sort of just mention that Rassilon's back, and that's why they're on the run, because Gallifrey has just become completely corrupt and unjust and inhumane. And then there's this slave planet, or this slave sort of labour camp, which kind of reminds me of Destiny of the Daleks. And then there's this sort of Western cowboy type character who kind of reminds me of what's his face from Diagoras, I think his name is, from the Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks, two-parter with David Tennant. He kind of reminds me of him. He's got this sort of buddy-buddy relationship with the Daleks. And that, and the Daleks, they sound phenomenal, honestly. They sound really cool. My only nitpick is that they have the classic series Dalek extermination, yet on the box set they're using a new series Dalek, so that kind of bothers me. If you're going to use new series Daleks, I'd rather the new series effect, or like sounding effect, and vice versa. It's just a little thing that takes me out of the story. I don't know why, but it just does. What else about Unity? Yeah, it feels like a really fleshed out sort of world and that, and it feels like a pretty decent, damn decent sort of conclusion to the box set. And as I say, that cliffhanger, wow. You know, and Leela finally feels more like Warrior of the Sabatine and sort of the character you expect. She's just gone through this sort of timey-wimey sort of story in the previous story, and that is also mentioned, but one of the characters is just like, wait, what? I don't understand what you're on about, sort of thing, and then she's like, yeah, but how could you? You know, I've experienced a whole nother time that doesn't actually happen, or hasn't happened, either yet or at all, sort of. It's very confusing, yeah. Again, I think Mother Tongue is an episode that I'd need to listen to a second time, even if I did just give it an 8 out of 10. It was sort of a fun, confusing story, if that makes sense. Kind of reminded me of Time Vampire, the companion chronicle story with Louise Jameson and Leela, but just done a bit more effectively, or it felt a bit more like organic a story. As I say, Unity, what else can I say about the story, really? Narvin's pretty funny, or had some nice, fun sort of lines. There's quite a bit of action as well, between the raiders and that, and it is really, the Daleks just sort of aren't even in Unity a lot. At first they're sort of kept a secret, and then they're just sort of like, no, actually it's probably best if we just handle this now. Your men have failed, and that will just kill everyone. And it's just like, Jesus, completely ruthless, you know. As always, really, or as always they should be, as they always should be, even. But yeah, I gave Unity an 8 out of 10, so yeah. Overall, I'd give Gallifrey Time War Box Set Volume 3, or Gallifrey Time War Volume 3, a 32 out of 40. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate, and subscribe.